Von White, or Von White. He's a guest here at Catworks Studio. We're featuring his work throughout the summer, and it's a beautiful addition to our gallery. And I'm happy to have the opportunity to present Richard Von White. Your work here again at Catworks Gallery and Studio in Bay City, Michigan. They're by far the brightest, most colorful works that we've ever had in the gallery. How would you summarize the nature of your works?
Well, it's obviously tropical light. That's why there's this brightness. It's said that when Paul Gauguin went to Tahiti from France, he couldn't believe the colors he was using because it's a much more intense.
Everything seems to have an incredible intensity to it.
It does.
The horizon lines even are intense. The subject matter is intense. And I had never seen anything produced, certainly in these latitudes, that would have anywhere near the brightness and intensity of your work. You're not what, from what my memory of, you're not a traditional Jamaican artist in the sense that you've been exposed. You attended art school in London, is it?
Absolutely, Goldsmiths College, London.
And this was in the late 60s?
I graduated in 1977.
The other thing that interests me about your work is the way that the concept cars blend into landscapes, and sometimes the landscapes start to take on human forms, and they go back and forth, so that sometimes the horizon is very much the same shape as the foreground.
These cars were designed basically from the female form.
Okay, so that was the starting point.
That was the starting point. And then it developed into this landscape, which in many instances is also has its source in the female form.
Right. It'll be easy to illustrate this from your work. Right. You give away your age by the love of the psychedelic generation. You've got images of Jimi Hendrix and electric guitars and some of the rock stars from the 60s. This book here, very much inspired, and it does reveal my age of being still listening to classic rock. And that's why I'm clutching this book designed by Gonell, because, you know, he has his paintings here as well. Gonell is one of the principal artists here at Catworks.
Absolutely.
He's been an artist his entire adult life, and almost shows his work exclusively here at Catworks now.
You see, it's a pleasure to be in the U.S. with two American artists who are being the hosts, as you are to me right now.
Are there any other points that you'd like to enumerate about your work, Richard?
Well, it's definitely something from the tropical region or tropical hemisphere, and it's really a style which has evolved out of perhaps going to art school in London, going through all the rigorous lectures and studies of art and the nude models in school and philosophies. And
do you still ever surprise yourself with a new direction or different directions that your work takes?
So I do surprise myself. For starters, the car series was something totally different to anything I've ever done before. And it came out of just thinking about the American auto stimulus, which had something to do with GM being given this.
So you're, would you describe yourself on some levels as somewhat of a car nut, as far as, you know, being influenced by automobile design and industrial design?
No, I'm not. I'm very much the organic type of person. Yes, I'm very much someone who has been into organic form and design, coming very close to nature, from nature, and not the mechanical type of person at all.
Right, and your cars certainly reflect that as being very soft-edged, very curvy. They've got a lot more to do with a 1953 Jaguar than they do with a DeLorean. You tend to be a series painter where you will take an idea and run with it for as ever long as it takes you to express yourself. What is the new series that you've been working on?
Before I answer your question, Tom, I will say that the series that preceded the car series was one to do with buildings, where I designed buildings based on the female form and the tropical environment. After painting the buildings, the dwellings, I then did the vehicles of man, which are the cars. And moving on from this, what I have next as a thought in embryo, an art that's just starting to be the next step. A spiritual series. And the first painting which I've designed has been called Which Chalice is the Holy Grail? This is very much inspired by the movie Last Crusade with Harrison Ford. When you know, him and Sean Connery entered the cave, and there was the knight there, and all the different cups on a shelf. And
well, which is the carpenter's cup?
Absolutely, which is the carpenter's cup. And that whole scene in the movie inspired this painting. Huh. So I have already penciled out on canvas, this upcoming work, which I want to exhibit in the National Gallery of Jamaica. In the National Gallery of Jamaica, which has an annual national exhibition every 2 years.
Well, let's take a look at some of the art that you brought with you for this show. Go ahead, Rich. This is a good example of the car morphing into the landscape and starting to feel as though the car is composed of nudes.
Absolutely. Itself is designed from the female form, and so is the landscape. And it's put together. I call this one electric generation, electric car. And that's where you plug it in.
That's good.
That's where you plug it in.
Certainly are electric colors.
Well, maybe the whole electric concept of motor vehicles could be the way to go for the future.
Speaking of electric, this next painting is certainly one of your influences, back to that psychedelic era. It brings me right back to
Electric Ladyland.
Right back to 1968 or 1969.
Absolutely. Jimi Hendrix, Mitchell, Noel Redding. Three of my favorite musicians, all now deceased here in this new millennium. But I can remember being a young art student, as far back as Jamaica School of Art, listening to Hendrix and painting and getting into a total, fully liberated mode of expression. And there's the album Axis Boulder's Love, where that comes from. There's the yin and the yang there, you know, female symbol, you know, the towel.
Yes, and I see this is, the date on this is 2010. So you still are very much, to this date, I wouldn't say you're stuck in the, you were like, we don't want to give our age away that we're stuck in the 60s.
No.
But you still is a strong influence on you, obviously.
When he was alive, was still very much stuck in Beethoven, Chopin, Tchaikovsky.
It's pretty classy company to be stuck in.
Very classic company to be stuck in.
And I think as time has already shown that the Jimi Hendrixes of the world are a pretty classy company right now.
They're absolutely the modern classics. I mean, 100 years from now, when we look back at the new cultural renaissance, what will be considered as classical will be people like Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones.
It's a good example of nearly pure abstraction. The doesn't necessarily depict anything, but it certainly has a rich and vibrant use of colors and interplay of colors and textures into what is I guess could be called a seascape. But you definitely get the same forms. Is that your intention with this piece, is to be more of a pure piece of color, form?
It is. And the shapes here again are designed in a similar method, still having some source in the female form.
Yes.
But what happens, it's now a landscape, seascape of a kind of a mountain. And this is the peak of the mountain, taking it to the horizon of the ocean and the sky. And you could cut away areas like this. You could get rid of the ocean and the sky and just zero in on areas like this alone, and we'll have a total abstract painting. And many a time I've thought of going in that pure direction as well, but then something somehow links me back to the figurative, so I end up incorporating the two.